Good morning and welcome to today's webinar of the SME Instruments Overseas Trade Fairs Participation Program. Today's webinar will focus on promotion of the upcoming trade fairs, which will soon be open for applications, and will aim to give participants a nice overview of the upcoming trade fairs, which will be covered by the program, and the main elements to have in mind in terms of opportunities in the markets that are targeted and the specifics of those trade fairs, as well as details of the application process where available, and of what it means to take part in the program. So today's session will be hosted by the Overseas Trade Fairs team, myself, Jean-Jacques Lennon, managing the team, as well as my colleagues Laura and Margot. And we have the privilege of having a number of guest speakers who will introduce the various trade fairs which are upcoming in the program. You can see them on the slide here in front of you, and I will introduce the various guests as we go through the presentation to give you more details on the specifics of the various trade fairs in question. In terms of the agenda, we'll try to stick to the hour and a half that we have in front of us, starting with a general overview of the program and the experience that participants, meaning European SMEs taking part in the Overseas Trade Fairs program, can expect in terms of the timeline, the services provided by the program, and ultimately the impact that we expect this will have for you. We'll then go over the upcoming trade fairs, including those which are already open to application, namely Lagos, Arab Health, and CES, as well as the 6 further trade fairs which are about to be opened for applications, which we'll go into details of. And then we'll close the morning's webinar with an interactive Q&A session, taking questions from the audience. And we see a number of you logged in today, and of course, we'll be happy to answer all your questions, whether live on today's webinar or at a later date. We'll be providing all our contact details as usual at the end of the session. Just a reminder in terms of practicalities for the webinar, you will all as participants be muted during the presentation to avoid too much background noise given the number of attendees. Please don't hesitate as we go through the material to type in your questions. We'll happily answer those during the Q&A session, but also as we progress through the slides to the extent we can. You'll be unmuted during the Q&A session if you do have questions you would like to our presentation, a general overview of the program. I'll jump straight into that. So the Overseas Trade Fairs Participation Program is essentially an EU-funded initiative to support the participation of up to 225 European SMEs who are SME instrument champions selected for grants under phases 1 and/or 2 of the SME instrument to participate in 15 major international trade fairs around the world and outside of the EU. Those 15 international trade fairs we'll present in a moment cover a number of different sectors. Some actually are themselves multi-sectoral, while others are specifically focused on given sectors, and we'll see that in the presentations later in this webinar. And in terms of the coverage and the targeted markets, these are 11 markets outside of the EU, namely the US, Chile in South America, Nigeria and South Africa in Africa, the United Arab Emirates in the Middle East, and then India, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Japan, and China in Asia. Now, the Overseas Trade Fairs program fits into the SME instrument, as I was mentioning, and it comes under phase 3 of the SME instrument, meaning the commercialization phase where the SME instrument is supporting European SMEs to commercialize their innovative technologies, products, and services, which have been previously supported under phases 1 and or 2 of the SME instrument. Phases 1 and 2 cover support for definition and concept elaboration with feasibility assessments and business cases, and phase 2 specifically supports in terms of demonstration projects, market replication, basically looking to bring concepts to market maturity. And so the Overseas Trade Fairs program really is aimed at those SMEs having benefited from phases 1 and 2 and now feeling ready and mature with their products, technologies, and services to launch these into markets outside of the EU. And the idea behind that, of course, is that much of the growth around the world in terms of economic opportunities will come from outside the EU in coming years. And so the Overseas Trade Fairs program will have as objectives to help European SMEs to take advantage of that growth. How will it do so? Essentially by helping SMEs to scale up and reach new geographical markets. Many SMEs face barriers to attend trade fairs or go on missions to assess and take advantage of opportunities in foreign markets on their own. And so the idea here is that the European Union is supporting that process, thereby increasing knowledge of foreign markets, preparing the SMEs for business deals, helping them to exhibit their innovative technologies and products in international trade fairs and gain visibility on the international scene. And of course, an underlying principle of the program is that it is a selective one, as in general is the SME instrument, meaning that only those technologies and products considered to be amongst the best in Europe are being showcased on these overseas trade fairs. So there is clearly a quality label and an overarching branding of SMEs being supported by the European Union in these foreign markets. In terms of those markets selected, and I mentioned the 11 different markets earlier, you can see here on the slide a quick overview of some of the projected GDP growth figures, and you can see, of course, that a lot of growth is expected to come from Asia broadly, with significant growth rates continuing in China despite small slowdown, in India, of course, and in Southeast Asia, just to name some examples there. And of course, significant growth continues in other parts of the world as well, ranging from the US to South America, the Middle East, and Africa, of course. Now, the list of 15 trade fairs that have been selected is presented on this slide. You can see from their names that some of the trade fairs are very specific in terms of the sectoral focus. I take as an example the Fiber Optics Expo that took place in April this year in Tokyo, or for instance the MIHAS trade fair that took place as well in April, focused on halal food, pharmaceuticals, and tourism, whereas other trade fairs are broader in focus. For example, the upcoming trade fair in Lagos in November of this year covers broad technologies and environmental aspects, and so has a much wider scope than certain other trade fairs. I'll let you look over these trade fairs in your own time, and we will of course be providing this material to you after the webinar. It will be made available on the website and sent to all participants for your further review. And on this next slide, what we see is the distribution of those trade fairs over 2017 and 2018, the 2 years that the program covers in terms of attendance of trade fairs. As you can see, we've grayed out the trade fairs for which applications are no longer being taken, either because they've happened already. That's the case for the first 3 trade fairs, FOE, in Tokyo, MIHAS in Kuala Lumpur, and IE Expo in Shanghai, but also those 3 trade fairs that are upcoming, but for which applications have already closed, namely Bio in San Diego, Tech Innovation in Singapore, and GITEX in Dubai. Now, those trade fairs remaining in darker blue here are all either already open for application, the next 3 being Lagos International Trade Fair in Nigeria in November of this year, International CES in Las Vegas, and Arab Health in Dubai, or are about to open in the next upcoming days. And this is the last 6 trade fairs in 2018, which will be covered by the program and which we'll go into more details on later in the webinar. Now, just a brief update on what has happened to date with the program, and just to give you a few examples of what SMEs participating can expect. You can see a few photos of the pavilions which the Overseas Trade Fairs program has brought to the various trade fairs attended. So what you see here in terms of the 3 missions which have taken place, Fiber Optics Expo in Tokyo, MIHAS in Malaysia, and IE Expo focusing on environmental technologies in Shanghai, we've had 33 participating SMEs attending these, 500 plus B2B meetings arranged or spontaneously taking place at the trade fairs for these 33 companies. Inclusion of awarded SME instrument champions in specific awards at the trade fairs and or in various fora which have taken place. And I think the photos speak for themselves in terms of the delegations there. And for instance, you can see a photo of a pitching session at IE Expo. So there is clear success for some of these missions in terms of visibility gained, in terms of understanding of the market that's been gained, but fundamentally the main value that has been generated is in terms of allowing the European SMEs to meet local counterparts that are interesting for their businesses, be it as distributors, end clients, investors, etc., and to discuss opportunities in these markets with them. And of course, that has generated a certain amount of media coverage, as you would imagine, in terms of results of the various missions. So I'll now hand over to Laura, who will walk us through the typical experience that an SME applying to the program should expect, as well as the services that the program provides to the SMEs.
Thank you, Jean-Jacques, and hello, everyone. So indeed, I'm going to go through the OTF's program in a bit more practical way and just give a summary of the support the OTF program can give you as SME instrument beneficiaries. So first of all, the selected companies will get a free booth on the SME instrument pavilion. So the idea is that at each of the trade fairs, as you've seen already in the pictures we just showed you before, we usually go with an open island type pavilion where all of the companies that have been selected will have their own roughly 5 square meters space that they will be able to brand and use as they wish. Also, what we do is that we help you prepare for the fair. So we go through all of the preparation steps with you. We follow you during a full training day and give you insights, tips, and tricks to best prepare for a successful and fruitful exhibition mission. We also support your company in terms of promotion internationally, especially in the local market, before and during the trade fair. And in this same effort, we look for pre-scheduled business meetings with a specific type of counterparts that your company is interested in meeting with. I'll get back to this a little bit later as well. On top of that, during the exhibition week, we try to seek for interesting and relevant different types of networking receptions. We actually organize one on the European Pavilion. So the idea is for us to invite the most relevant types of multipliers and counterparts for you to meet with, and for you as well to invite any relevant or specific counterpart, clients, business potential counterparts that you would be interested in meeting and networking with at such receptions. We also organize pitching sessions on the EU Pavilion for you to pitch your companies and technologies. And on top of that, the European Commission, and I'll get back to that in a couple of slides again, offers you a support of €1,000 to cover all certain types of eligible costs. But before I get back to that, more specifically, I'll just go quickly through the process and the timeline of an OTF experience. So after the application and evaluation periods, on which Jean-Jacques will come back later on again, the SMEs will be asked to provide further information about their business profiles, their business needs, as well as their expectations regarding the exhibition mission. So we'll further discuss these during our one-day pre-departure briefing that will be held for each of the trade fairs, usually 2 months before we leave on the mission week. So this pre-departure briefing also includes sessions on the specific target markets in terms of information on business culture or regulatory specifications, etc. After the mission week, which we hope will be very successful for you, we'll be, of course, asking for a little bit of feedback from you so we can integrate these comments and remarks for later and subsequent mission. And of course, we're seeking to always get further, better, and better results in terms of the program. Sorry. The idea is also to share all of the contacts and the relevant business counterpart contact details with all of the SME instrument community. So this will be done also after we get back from mission. And it's nearly a year after your application. We'll get back to you again with an impact survey, hoping to see indeed an impactful and fruitful experience for your company, also in terms of economic sales growth. Finally, the OTF financial support. So the participants will have to cover their travel and accommodation expenses. So here we've just an illustrative example of what we think could usually be supported by, so what we think, should usually be borne by the participants as travel and accommodation expenses. On top of that, candidates sometimes also need some further consulting or regulatory advice or any extra printing or translation or boost customization. And on these, as I mentioned, the European Commission will reimburse up to 50% of such approved expenses with a total reimbursement of €1,000. Please also note that all the Phase 2 SME instrument beneficiaries will be able to go further in terms of European Commission contribution, as some of the expenses can be included in the Phase 2 grant agreement as dissemination expenses. I'll now give on to Jean-Jacques to go over the overview of the upcoming trade fairs and the open calls.
Thanks, Laura, for that overview of the overseas trade fairs experience for participating SMEs. Just a quick note at this stage, we will take any questions, of course, as said, at the Q&A session right at the end of the presentation, but as we'll have different presenters for the various trade fairs in question, we may open the floor at the end of each individual presentation just for a brief Q&A if there are any specific questions on a given trade fair. So to present the upcoming trade fairs for which applications either are already open or will be shortly, you see on the slide in front of you the overview of these. So as said, 3 different trade fairs are currently open for applications, with one deadline coming up very soon, in fact end of next week, which is the Lagos International Trade Fair in Nigeria. So any candidates interested in that trade fair should now be entering their application, the deadline being next Friday. And our team is, of course, here to support should you have any questions or issues in doing so. 2 other trade fairs are also open as we speak for applications, being International CES in Las Vegas, covering consumer electronics, and broad technologies, and that is taking place in January of next year from 9th to 12th, with the application deadline being end of the summer on 25th of August this year. And the same deadline of 25th August for the Arab Health Trade Fair in Dubai, focused on medical technologies and healthcare, and that trade fair takes place end of January, begin February 2018, so from 29th January till 1st of Feb 2018. Now, those 3 calls are already open for applications, and we, of course, are welcoming any applications. There are still, of course, spaces available for future potential interested applicants, and so please don't hesitate to apply. It's a competitive process, but we will consider all applicants right up until the deadlines for these. And then the 6 trade fairs which applications will open up for shortly, and that will be in the coming days, are FIDAI, which we'll present in a moment, Asia Water Expo in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in April of next year, Africa Utility Week in Cape Town, South Africa in May of next year, Electronica and Productronica in September next year in New Delhi, CIIF in Shanghai in November next year, and Metalex towards the end of November next year in Thailand. If you want to apply to the 3 open trade fairs, you basically should navigate to the online website, which is presented on this slide, for the Overseas Trade Fairs program, and fill in the application form, and then monitor any communications coming back to you from the program. The same principle will apply, of course, for the upcoming trade fairs, which will be opening shortly, as said. And in terms of the candidates we're looking for to take part in these trade fairs, of course, you must be an SME instrument beneficiary with a signed grant agreement from phase 1 or phase 2. So by the time you apply, that means that any company or any European SME having taken part in the SME instrument phase 1 or phase 2 with a signed grant agreement at any stage before the application deadline for one of our fairs is eligible to apply. Of course, in terms of a we just had. We lost the connection and audio. I hope you can still hear us now, as we've done manipulations to ensure that we can be heard again. I'll take up where I left off in terms of who we are looking for as candidates to the program. Now, of course, you will understand that only companies that are European SMEs who have been granted under the Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the SME instrument are eligible to take part in the program. But as we get quite a number of applications for the different trade fairs, we obviously have to select the best companies who will most likely benefit from the program. To do that, we look at three main criteria, being the potential impact expected for the companies in taking part in the trade fairs. What is their likelihood to economically benefit from going on the mission in terms of meeting relevant counterparts? We look at the fit with the trade fair and target geography. Certain SMEs, of course, by definition, will be better fitting with some of the trade fairs based on their sectors of activity and potentially based on their experience with certain types of markets. And so fit is an important factor to have in mind. And last but not least, we look at the commitment and level of resources available. Participating in these overseas trade fairs is, of course, a time-consuming activity, one which we hope will be beneficial to the companies, but does require investment in terms of time and effort, not only to take part in the mission, but also in terms of follow-up subsequently and really being able to benefit and ideally make business deals based on participating in the trade fair. And obviously that results in 10 to 15 selected SMEs for each of the trade fairs, ideally with what we put in place being a waiting list of up to 5 SMEs in case any unforeseen events lead to any of the selected companies being withdrawn, so we're able to allow other participants to benefit from their place. So that gives us an overview of the program, the application process in general, and the opportunities and experience that SMEs can expect. Now we'll turn to a more detailed review of the various upcoming trade fairs. So the first one is the FIDAE trade fair in Chile, which takes place from the 3rd to the 8th of April next year. A very brief overview of the Chilean market. Obviously, the EU is Chile's 3rd trading partner after the US and China, so very linked to the EU market in general. It's a fairly small market in itself, with the population of Chile at about 18 million, some growth there, with expectations that it will rise to 20 million or so by 2050. And as we see, Chile's economy is very much focused on mining and agricultural exports, which generates a lot of Chile's resources or incomes, and essentially companies there many of them are regional companies, and two of the 3 largest retailers in Latin America are Chilean. So just a very brief overview of the market there. To focus more specifically on the trade fair itself, FIDAE in 2018, and it's a bi-yearly trade fair, so we do encourage those of you who are interested to take good note, as the next edition will only be in 2020, is aimed at the aerospace industry. Also defense is a component. It's a major trade fair with 120,000 visitors in the previous edition in 2016. Visitors ranging from government officials, airline presidents, space agencies, business executives in the sector, through to members of the armed forces, etc., given the multiple focus of the trade fair. More than 580 exhibitors in 2016 from 46 countries and 600 trade delegations. So you see that this is a very much internationally focused trade fair, as the sector is one where many of the largest players are, of course, both US and EU based, as well as from other countries around the world. And the participation of the Overseas Trade Fairs program in this trade fair in 2018 will be in collaboration with other EU initiatives. We are collaborating with the Business Beyond Borders initiative, which will be putting in place a specific matchmaking platform for FIDAI in 2018, which we will of course leverage to optimize the results from our own matchmaking. And so you can expect a lot of support should you be interested in participating in this trade fair, both from our own program and other linked European initiatives. So we warmly welcome any applications from interested companies in the aerospace sector. Also consider that from a broad perspective, so obviously drones, equipment and services, simulators, training equipment, software, engine components, etc., are of course relevant subsectors for this trade fair. So that was a brief overview of the FIDAI trade fair. I'll now turn to the Overseas Trade Fair's participation in African market. The first upcoming trade fair is in Lagos in November this year, 3rd to 12th as said. A brief overview of the Nigerian market was provided in our previous webinar. So just some headline figures here. Basically the EU being the first trading partner of the West African region. Obviously the Nigerian market is now considered the biggest market in Africa. And while it's hit some turbulence in terms of its growth in 2016, 2017 certainly seems to be the moment of recovery and a turning point on the way back up, as it were, with a couple of sectors here highlighted on the slides that show significant growth potential for the coming years. And I will now welcome Sola Oluwadare, who is from the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, to give us a few brief notes on the Lagos International Trade Fair.
Thank you very much, Jean. Thank you very much, Jean Jacques Leno, for giving us this opportunity to make presentation about the 2017 Lagos International Trade Fair, Nigeria. Once again, my name is Shola Oluwadare, a manager in the Trade Promotion Department of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the organizers of the fair. It will interest you to know that this is the 31st edition of the Lagos International Trade Fair. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry itself was established in 1888, and this year's trade fair we hold from Friday 3rd to Sunday 12th November 2017 at Tafawa Balewa Square, is the Central Business District in Lagos, Nigeria. The theme of the 2017 Lagos International Trade Fair is promoting industrialization for economic recovery and sustainable growth. As we are all aware, Nigeria slumped into recession a few months ago, and already the economy is picking up. So the theme of the fair has been selected to underline what the government and the private sector is doing to keep the economy on track. Now, there are so many unique features of the Lagos International Trade Fair. One, we are going to have the Preferred International Investment Conference that will hold on 2nd November. This International Investment Conference would give us the opportunity to bring experts together in and out of Nigeria to discuss how industrialization can be used for recovery and the sustainable growth of Nigerian economy. The total exhibition area of the 2017 Lagos International Trade Fair is 40,000 square meters, and the fair records 500 visitors for the 10-day period annually. You will agree with me that with over 180 million Nigeria and specifically over 25 million population in Lagos, this year we are going to have tremendous increase in the footfall. The fair covers all sectors of the Nigerian economy. It records average of 2,500 exhibiting companies, SME, multinational, and oil and gas, all sectors of the economy. And this year we are expecting increase in the number of participating companies because of the economic recovery process that Nigeria is going through at the present, and because of different innovation that the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industries is bringing to the fair. I would also like to let you know that over 15 countries in Africa and overseas have indicated interest as at 15th May 2017. There is no doubt the fact that the Lagos International Trade Fair is the best and the biggest international exhibition in Africa, having organized it for over 30 years. I would also like to know that there will be a secured environment with 24 hours CCTV coverage, presence of foreign and local investors, preferred gateway into the Nigerian and African economy. And one thing about the Lagos International Trade Fair is the concentrated media attention for the 10-day period. We have relationship, partnership with 22 indigenous media organizations, traditional media, and it's increasing by the day. And the fair will also is majorly business to consumer fair, and of course we're going to have the business to business fair pre-arranged meetings. These meetings will hold simultaneously with the business to consumer fair at the same venue, Tafawa Balewa Square, the business district in Lagos, Nigeria. For further information, if you visit our website, www.lagosinternationaltradefair.com, all this information is available. We'd like to welcome everyone to Lagos come November. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for that overview of Lagos International Trade Fair, Sola. And of course, as mentioned, the deadline for applying via the Overseas Trade Fairs program to Lagos is next Friday. So we do warmly encourage any attendees considering this to certainly submit your applications very quickly, and we will support you in that process, of course. So turning to the second trade fair upcoming in Africa, covered by the Overseas Trade Fairs program, that is the African Utility Week in South Africa. A very brief overview of the South African market again, in terms of interactions with Europe. So obviously, South Africa remains to date the EU's first trading partner in Africa. Also a very large market. As said, Nigeria has just recently been promoted, as it were, with statistics to the largest economy in Africa, but South Africa does remain a significant player at number 2, with a population of about 55 million and a GDP of $314 billion 2 years back. So a big and ultimately the most sophisticated market in Africa, very much focused on machinery and vehicles production. So those are two major sectors in the market which are focused on. Without further ado, I'll hand the floor over to Edgar Barron from Spintelligent, who will give us a bit of an overview on the Africa Utility Week upcoming in 2018, noting that this year's edition in 2017 has just finished. Perhaps Edgar can give us a few quick insights as to how successful that has been.
Good morning. I hope everyone can hear me all right. Thank you, Jean-Jacques. Yes, the event is just finished. Technically, we're still doing site visits today, and the expo finished last night. In terms of how successful it was extremely successful. Very, very happy exhibitors and participants alike, and most of them are definitely coming back next year. So just on the basic stats on slide number 1, first thing that I want to share is that African Utility Week is part of a Global Utility Week series, where we have some of them in other parts of the world as well. So it's not in isolation, and also that it's an international expo and conference that focuses on power and energy, but also there's a water component as well as ITC that we're leaning towards where the future is concerned. Spintelligent as a company is part of Clarion, based in the United Kingdom, and so we're one of the largest organizers in the world as well. 2017 quick stats. So it's the largest power and electricity expo and conference in Africa. We're on the 18th edition. It's a 3-day event. So far we've had 11,000 square meters, and that's purely because we're limited by the 4 walls of the convention center itself. But in 2018, the new extension will be ready, and adding another 10,000 square meters to that. 7,500 delegates we had through the doors as of yesterday, including delegates and visitors. We got 6 side events, which I'll touch on the next slide. We had 271 exhibitors. We also have the industry awards. That is normally a very good opportunity to network with all the utilities that are present, and of those, we have a CEO forum as a side event that has about 30 of the utilities in sub-Saharan Africa present, including West Africa and East Africa as well, of course. We have a number of the utilities from Africa that come every single year as part of the demand side. We have a business-to-business networking platform that works very, very effectively, and then we had 11 country pavilions this year from Taiwan, Germany, China, South Africa, of course, was represented as well, and then Belgium from a nuclear perspective, Canada, Denmark, India, the Czech Republic, France, and Russia as well. Could you go to the next slide for me, please? Right. In 2018, as of yesterday, we sold 80% of the current floor space, which you'll see on the last slide. As I said again, it will be a 3-day event, 21,000 square meters space that will be used in terms of the expo itself. We're looking to get more than the 7,500 delegates and visitors that we've had this year. The 6 side events will be there again, the industry awards, business-to-business networking, and with the extension of the convention center, we're looking to have more than 350 exhibitors, including your representation that will be coming through next year. I've put the 11 country pavilions back in because all of them have been exceptionally happy and confirmed that they will all be coming back, and some of them are certainly rebooked as well. And we're expecting an additional 3 new countries to come through next year to participate. Just on the right side of the screen, you'd see the co-located events. So Africa Power focuses predominantly on the financial side of investment, as well as the EPCs. The Africa Utilities Technology Council has a site conference that they started with us for the first time this year. That'll continue next year. Gas to Power, generally run by the Oil and Gas Council. That's also a subsidiary of Clarion. Nuclear Power Africa itself is new, but certainly with regards to the developments within Africa, looking to add nuclear power to the mix, that has become a very important component. And then, of course, the Utility CEO Forum, we have had every single year quite successfully. So some of the top CEOs from Africa that are always present. Just under our logo, African Utility Week, you will see that our website, you can go and visit, www.african-utility-week.com. As soon as our post-event report for this this exhibition and show will be ready, we could certainly send that through to you as well. You can go to the next slide for me, please. Right, so I've just basically put in the expo floor for you, and you'll notice that we've certainly had to put some stands within the corridors on the outside as well, and that was purely because the extension of the convention center was not complete with regards to its finishes. But if you have a look at it, you can clearly see the usage. We've pretty much optimized the space in a sense. So there are workshops on the floor and certainly outside of the main expo hall as well. The convention center currently has four and a half halls, which creates at 11,000 square meters. There are two basic main conference venues, and then a number of meeting venues that are throughout the venue as well. And we take up the entire convention center. And then in addition, there are other services in terms of accommodation, etc., that we also can assist with. And particularly today, a number of the delegates go out on site visits on the one hand to, for them from a nuclear perspective, they go to the Kubuk power station, which is currently South Africa's only nuclear power station and the only one running on the African continent. And then other sites in terms of hydro, in terms of energy efficiency, energy storage, etc. These all form parts of some of those site visits that. Right.
Excellent. Thanks for that overview, Edgar. I think that clearly highlights the growth in African Utility Week over time, and as you pointed out, that the 2018 edition will continue that growth, and obviously we again will soon welcome applicants to the trade fair via this Overseas Trade Fairs program. To apply as soon as the application process opens for that.
Fantastic.
So turning now to another market targeted by the Overseas Trade Fairs, which is India. The program will attend the Electronica and Productronica Trade Fair in September of 2018, from the 15th to the 17th. Now, very briefly, before I introduce Anne D'Autremont from Messe München, who will walk us through the trade fair, just a look at India as a market and its links to the EU. So obviously the EU is India's largest trading partner, the EU taken as a whole, with about 13.5% of India's overall trade in the last couple of years. And so that's a significant trading partner for the EU, and obviously as a market exhibits significant potential. Obviously a huge population of 1.3 billion and a huge GDP of about 2 trillion, with significant growth rates expected in the coming years. Key exports in engineering, petroleum products, gems and jewelry, and imports in electronic goods, of course, are a significant part of imports. And so Electronica and Productronica is a key opportunity for those European companies looking to take advantage of that. So I'll turn now to Anne D'Autremont from Messe München, as said, to give us an overview of what to expect at Electronica and Productronica India.
Thank you, Jean-Jacques, to have invited me to this meeting. I'm really happy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me?
We hear you, thanks.
Oh, thank you. So my name is Anne D'Autremont, and I'm organizing the trade fairs Electronica India and Productronica India. I am based in Munich at Messe München, but directly cooperate with our subsidiary in India. I am very happy about this opportunity today, so thank you. Excellent. Thank you. So first, why India? I guess Jean-Jacques, you already answered. Because India is a country as big as a continent with a huge potential for economic growth. We saw in the first slides today that you planned the strongest projected GPD in the world. With programs like Make in India and Invest India, the Indian government, followed now by the individual Indian states, offers extremely interesting solutions to international companies to simplify their entry and development in the Indian market. And we, Electronica India and Productronica India, are actively supporting this project. Electronica India is dedicated to the electronics components market, and Productron India covers the electronics manufacturing industry. Together, they are today the leading platform in India for the complete electronic industry. They take place every year in September, alternating between both main economical hubs, New Delhi, the capital, and Bangalore, the so-called Indian Silicon Valley. By the way, in 2018 we will be in Bangalore, and we are this year in New Delhi. The government and the main national and international association support us in the promotion, but as well in the development and realization of our exhibitions and of the supporting program. Both, next, please. Both fairs reflect the actual economical trend in India and steadily grow in the terms of visitors and exhibitors. At the last shows in September 2016, we brought together almost 18,000 trade visitors, over 450 exhibitors, representing 650 companies from 17 countries. We were exhibiting on 18,300 square meters gross. Next. The shows offer a platform to the main actual trends in India, which are, especially for Electronica India, topics as cables and connectors, PCBs and semiconductors. At Productronica India, the main topics are EMS, SMT and test and measurement. We already have several country pavilions like China, Germany, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan and the United Kingdom. Also, the Indian states started to participate in 2016 to meet the industry and present their individual opportunities for investment in their areas. Next. Thank you. Our supporting program, as I already said before, is developed in cooperation. Oh, sorry, I'm back. Is developed in cooperation with the main association and the government to present the actual trends and challenges on the Indian electronics market. It's very well attended, and our focuses are embedded systems, IoT, and PCB. Very important highlight is, of course, our individual matchmaking platform, the buyer-seller forum, where our Indian teams actively bring exhibitors and visitors in direct contact in one-to-one meetings together in the 2 months before the show. So, I'm coming to my almost the last slide. The next show is going to happen in September 2017. As I said before, in New Delhi. In 2018, we will be in Bangalore. We will add a very hot, interesting topic this year because India should become the third largest manufacturer of automobiles worldwide in the next years after US and China. This is why we will organize an automotive area and an expert conference on that topic as well. All sales status for this year is very good for both shows. The main key players are following us. We also had to extend the space, so we expect, of course, that our growing is going on in the next years. Next. Thank you. So we would be very happy to welcome you at Electronica India and Productronica India 2018 in Bangalore, and to support you together with you, Jean-Jacques and Laura, to step in this most promising Indian market. Of course, you're also welcome to contact me if you are interested in coming already in 2007. We have really good booking, but we of course accept new exhibitors. Don't hesitate to contact me. You can see my contact details on this slide. I wish you a very nice afternoon and a great weekend, and thank you all for your attention.
Thanks for that nice overview of Electronica and Productronica, Anne. And clearly, again, we will welcome all applicants as soon as the application is open for Electronica, Productronica in the coming days. So we'll turn now to another part of Asia, Southeast Asia, where the Overseas Trade Fairs program will support SMEs, and we will be allowing SMEs to apply for two different trade fairs upcoming in Southeast Asia. The first is Asia Water Expo in Kuala Lumpur in April next year, from 10th to 12th April, and then Metalex in Bangkok in Thailand from the 20th to the 23rd of November next year. So just to give a very brief overview of Southeast Asian market, you see on the slide here the 10 ASEAN countries represented. As a region, Southeast Asia is comparable in population to Europe, and obviously exhibits significant GDP growth, starting from a lower base than Europe, as you will no doubt be aware, but with nice growth rates and potential, with many of these economies developing. On the next slide, what we see is a focus on specifically on Malaysia and Thailand. If we decompose Southeast Asia and ASEAN, we see different economies at various stages of development, and what you can see on this slide here is that in terms of GDP per capita, Thailand and Malaysia are in what is considered the upper middle income group, so obviously still below the EU, Japan, the US, in terms of GDP per capita, but significantly higher in terms of GDP growth rates expected in the next years. And both Malaysia and Thailand exhibit economies somewhat focused on services and industry, more so perhaps than other more developing economies in the region. So significant potential for growth in these large growing economies in Southeast Asia. To turn to Asia Water Expo, I'll introduce Vicky Tan and Haza Tukimin from UBM to give us a brief view of there and what we can expect.
Thank you, Jean. Hello and good morning, everyone. This is Vicky. I'm together with my colleagues here, Haza and Hani from Malaysia. We are very happy to share with all of you here about the upcoming Asian Water Shows set to be held on 10th to 12th of April next year at Kuala Lumpur Convention Center. First and foremost, Asian Water was established over 14 years ago in year 2000, and the show is showing steadily growth over the years. This year marks our 10th anniversary edition of the event, and it will be held right beside the iconic Twin Tower in Malaysia. Asia Water is a biannual event and is expected to welcome over 14,700 attendees from 48 countries to the show. This is the region's largest water and wastewater industry event with more than 60 free-to-attend seminars and conferences, presenting topics on policies and management, technologies and options, case studies, and wastewater management resources aware. This year, we are planning with a team of partnership collaboration for sustainable water. And AWARE is fully supported by the Department of Irrigations and Drainage Malaysia, DID, under the direction of Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Malaysia. This year, we are happy to also receive 12 international and regional pavilions from our supporters in Austria, China, Denmark, and for the first time with the EU, Germany, Korea, Singapore, Switzerland, and so on. Asia Water is strongly supported by the local Ministry of Malaysia, from the Ministry of Energy and Green Technology and Water Malaysia, again with the NRE, National Water Commissions, and more. Next slide, please. Next slide. Right. As you can see from the graph here, the visitors, mainly from the industry, are from the water companies and operators all across Asia. And the rest are coming from the environmental and engineers, agents and distributors, government side from both the Asia-Pacific regions, of course, oil and gas, and so on. So for companies who wish to seek for partners, distributors, or agents, or even would like to set up a business here in Asia, this is the right event for interested SMEs from the EUs to join. Based on our survey from Asia Water 2016 last year, many of these visitors to Asia Waters are to meet new and existing suppliers during the show, and also gather new market information and industry updates for the event. And you can see on the right is the exhibition hall, the pictures from last year of KLCC Convention Center. Next slide, please. This is a list of our exhibitors' profiles and visitor profiles of Asia Water 2018 for the past 10 years. Yep, and we will have more to showcase during the show. So please feel free to ask us any questions if you'd like to visit or even participate at Asia Water 2018. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that overview of Asia Water Expo 2018, Vicky. And again, we will soon be welcoming applications from interested European SMEs for our pavilion, our overseas trade fairs pavilion at Asia Water Expo for 2018. I'll turn now to Metalex, which will have a presentation from Marinella Croci on. So Metalex, as a reminder, taking place for the Overseas Trade Fairs program in November of 2018. Obviously, this year's edition will come in between, and Marinella can give us an update both on this year and perhaps what is expected next year as well. Marinella, are you with us? Do you hear me? Marinella, I hand the floor over to you if you hear us. Okay, unfortunately, it seems that we're having a technical issue bringing Marinella Croci into the webinar. So what I will do is very briefly highlight the Metalex trade fair. As you see on this first slide, essentially the 2017 edition from 22nd to 25th November this year is taking place over 9 exhibition halls at the BTEC venue with about 64,000 square meters. and we understand that the 2018 edition will cover a similar area. So it's a significant event, obviously taking place in Bangkok. The various halls cover different machine tools and metalworking technologies, and you can see them displayed on this slide. So ranging from metrology tools and tooling, a hall dedicated to international pavilions, through to factory automation, pumps and valves, equipment, accessories, sheet metal, wire and tube, robots, welding, machine tools in halls 101 to 104, and so forth, with many subsectors in machine tools and metalworking represented at the trade fair. If we look at an analysis of the visitors in 2016, so last year's edition, overall numbers 90,500 plus, so that's a significant number of visitors, with the vast majority looking for new products, technologies and services, and a number, obviously about 30% looking to obtain market information and 10% to place specific orders. So it is very much a fair focused on business to business and making deals. There are, in terms of the different products of interest, we can see machine tools and metalworking as the main represented product, but also manufacturing solutions software and subcontracting services, well represented, tools and tooling as well, and then various subsectors ranging from molds and dies through to welding, sheet metal forming, tube and pipes, precision measuring and testing, etc. So many different subsectors within machine tools and metal working represented. And in terms of the typical job functions, so we have manufacturers representing a large part, OEMs as well, distributors and agents present as well, and a small part of the visitors obviously coming from government and state enterprises as well. So apologies, Marinella, for the technical issue not being able to dial her in. I hope to have given a fair overview of Metalex, and again, we will be welcoming applications shortly to this trade fair in its November 2018 edition, where we will have the Overseas Trade Fairs delegation attending. So the last part of Asia that we'll cover in today's webinar is China, after having covered India and Southeast Asia, where we will have one more trade fair under the Overseas Trade Fairs program. We have already attended the IE Expo in Shanghai earlier this month, and will be returning to Shanghai with the program in November 2018 to attend the China International Industry Fair, which is a very large fair that we'll present in a moment. Perhaps a brief overview of the Chinese market. I think most attendees are well aware that this is, a significant market. Again, as with the Indian market, a huge population that is, of the scope of a continent rather than a country. The EU is China's second biggest trading partner. And likewise, China is a major trading partner for the EU. Significant growth remains, with growth rates at 5–6%, despite having tailed off somewhat from the last years. And in terms of specific opportunities, well, it's very much oriented towards the new economy, as is represented on this slide, and as was detailed in a previous webinar, with a focus on technologies, next generation technologies, robotics, augmented reality, virtual reality, clean technologies. That was the focus of IE Expo and is also integrated into the China International Industries Fair, healthcare, consumers with a growing middle class, and internet and media. Not to say that the old economy is devoid of any opportunities. There clearly are opportunities in industrials particularly with the manufacturing industry moving towards smart manufacturing as China grows up the scale in terms of the level of sophistication of manufacturing, with a lot of more basic manufacturing moving towards other parts of Southeast Asia. So to focus specifically on the China International Industry Fair, it will take place in November 2018 from the 6th to the 12th, supported as said by the Overseas Trade Fairs program with a delegation. It can be considered as an entry point to China's evolving industrial market, and again is a trade fair with numerous editions having been launched in 1999. So it really has become a leading event in equipment manufacturing in China, with 9 themes or development areas showcasing the entire industrial chain. And it takes place just outside Shanghai in the International Expo Center, which is extremely large and is nearly filled with this fair. Just to give you an idea of the scale of the fair, 2,556 exhibitors in 2016 from 28 countries. So that is massive, along with 168,000 visitors. So the 9 themes, just to go through those, similarly to Metalex, metalworking, and machine tool industrial automation, there is also environmental protection technologies and equipment, information and communication technology, energy, renewable energy is obviously being included in there, new energy automation, robotics is a particular theme as well, scientific and technological innovation in a broad industrial sense, and then there's the China Aerospace and Aviation Technology component, which can somewhat be linked to the sectors eligible for FIDI in Chile in April next year. So a very large trade fair indeed, with, as said, 168,000 plus visitors in its last edition, 50% of manufacturers coming from the various industries which are highlighted on the slide, so ranging from machinery manufacturing to automobile parts, IT and electronics, machine tools, construction, packaging and printing, aerospace, defense and security, environmental protection, light machinery, petrochemical and metallurgy, shipbuilding, etc., and electrical power equipment. So here again, a very broad trade fair with much potential for many of the European SMEs in the SME instrument to take advantage of opportunities to showcase their technologies and products in the Chinese market. So with that, I think we've covered the remaining trade fairs that will take place under the Overseas Trade Fairs program. So just as a brief recap, the 3 trade fairs which are currently open to applications being Lagos Trade Fair, for which applications close next Friday, and then CES and Arab Health in the US and the UAE, closing on the 25th of August. And then the 6 trade fairs highlighted in South America, FIDI in April next year, African Utility Week, in South Africa in May of next year, Electronica and Productronica in India in September next year, Asia Water Expo in Malaysia in April next year, Metalex in November next year in Bangkok, Thailand, and finally China International Industry Fair in Shanghai in November of next year as well. And we will welcome all your applications to these trade fairs. Don't hesitate if you have any questions in applying to them. They are great opportunities for you, and we will of course be here to support. And so with that, I will now open the Q&A session for any questions from the audience. So I'm just having a look here in the questions received that have been typed as we wait for questions to come. Can companies who only received a seal of excellence apply to these trade fairs? Unfortunately not. Companies can only apply to the trade fairs if they have a signed grant agreement under Phase 1 and or Phase 2 of the SME instrument. Now, that grant agreement has to be signed by the time of selection to the trade fair, meaning if you're in the process of applying to Phase 1 or Phase 2, you should still consider applying as if you're granted under Phase 1 or Phase 2 before being selected to the trade fair, you will be eligible. Unfortunately, companies only with a seal are not eligible. Another question is, can companies, or rather on average, how many applications do we receive for a trade fair to have an idea of the success rate? So the application numbers vary depending on the trade fairs. As you can imagine, some fairs are more specific in terms of their sectoral focus, others are broader, and so it's very difficult to give exact numbers. It's a selective process, so we do, as mentioned in the presentation, try to focus in order to select the 15 companies attending based on their high likelihood of having an impact, their fit with the trade fairs, and their available resources. And in general, we see that we have 2 to 3 times the number of applications versus the number of spots available, sometimes more, sometimes less, but so there is a fair chance of success if you do apply, and so we do strongly encourage applications. It should be noted that our team is here and available to coach and advise in the process of applying, and so if you have any interest in a trade fair, don't hesitate to get in touch with us because we can support that process as well. So if another question that's come through, if we send an application, how long does it take to be validated or to receive an answer? Again, that depends. What we aim to do is to turn around revisions of draft applications as quickly as we can. So typically you can expect a response in a matter of a day or a couple of days maximum. So any questions you have will be answered very quickly by the team. In terms of a definitive answer, well, that depends on the application process. To give the example of the 3 trade fairs for which applications are currently open, well, any companies applying to the Lagos Trade Fair in the next week will be advised of their attendance or not by the time the evaluation process for Lagos has been completed, and that's basically by mid-June. So there is a pretty quick turnaround from the application deadlines for the trade fairs through to being notified of being selected. And we aim to notify selected participants with good time so that you can go through the mentoring process in preparing your participation for the trade fair. So to stick with the example of Lagos, if you're notified of being selected by mid-June to the trade fair, you will then be attending our pre-departure briefing session in Brussels early September before going on the trade fair in November. And that allows us, through this mentoring and coaching program, to provide you with all the information you need to be prepared and to make sure that the mission is a successful one for you in terms of the business meetings that you have. In terms of questions on various trade fairs, we have, for example, a question here on whether Arab Health is relevant for pharmaceuticals industries besides medical technologies. So the best way of identifying whether a trade fair is fitting with your products and technologies is to do two things, which is indeed to check the website of the trade fair just to understand in terms of details what subsectors are covered, what previous participants have been exhibiting and visiting. And we, of course, remain here for any questions or details on a specific trade fair, so please don't hesitate to contact our team. Just after this Q&A, we'll show the slide that you'll all receive with the contact details of the team. Another question coming through, do champions receive information about the overseas trade fairs directly? And so I think this has been received from a multiplier organization, perhaps in the Enterprise Europe network. So essentially, we communicate with the various eligible European SMEs in the SME instrument in various ways. You can find all the available information on the website. We do send emailing details out to the various SME instrument champions on upcoming trade fairs, just to make sure that you know, no SME is unaware of an opportunity to apply for the various trade fairs, and so the messages are sent out through emails, as well as on the Twitter platform that we use, and a LinkedIn group which is also used. So in theory, all eligible European SMEs under the program should be aware of the program. Now, if any attendees have you know, not been informed of the opportunities upcoming, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us, as we'll then make sure that you're added to the relevant distribution lists and receive our information. Another question on the process in terms of is it possible for companies to save drafts of their applications before submitting? Yes, that's absolutely possible, and that's what we'd advise you if you want to maximize your chances of being selected. So basically, as I've mentioned, our team is here to support that process and help you make sure your application is as detailed and relevant as possible, and so we welcome any emails from you to the Overseas Trade Fairs mailbox with draft applications, which we'll then review and come back to you on within a matter of a day or two to ensure that you can put your best foot forward in terms of applying to a given trade fair and maximize your chances of success. On how to contact the organizers, again, well, we will provide a slide here with the contact details, and you can see it appearing in front of you. This presentation will be sent out, and our contact details are also obviously on the Overseas Trade Fairs webpage of the EASME website, and in the various flyers and materials on the program. So you can contact us by email at the Overseas Trade Fairs mailbox. Also follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, where you can equally ask us questions. But we do advise to get in touch by email, which remains obviously the quickest and easiest way of getting a specific answer to your various questions. So a question here on the relevant trade fairs for the maritime industry. So as such, it would we'd need to see which specific subsector of the maritime industry the company is in. Again, what we encourage all interested companies to do is to look at the various trade fairs that are presented on the Overseas Trade Fairs program. All of them have websites where you can see the different subsectors. And if you're able to send us an email with the more specific details on the company's sector and products and technologies, we can provide guidance directly as well. So for instance, if I just take at a high level the maritime industry, various trade fairs could come to mind, ranging from Asia Water Expo, focused on water technologies, all the way through to Metalex and China International Industry Fair, which also have components relating to metalwork for the shipping and maritime industry. But again, every trade fair has a number of focus sectors, and so best to see, based on your specific products and technologies, where you would fit. So question coming in terms of interested investors in the various companies presented at the trade fairs. So in terms of the focus of the overseas trade fairs, we aim to set up for each selected company, so each of the 15 companies which attends each trade fair, relevant B2B meetings. And those meetings may be with investors, they may be with distributors, they may be with agents, they may be with end clients. That really depends on the objectives that your individual company has in attending the trade fair. Of course, those objectives need to be aligned to the trade fair. If you want to meet government, for instance, where government is less present at a given trade fair, that may be more difficult. But in general, what we see is that most of these trade fairs under the program have a broad audience covering all the different walks of given industries or sectors, and so we can tailor our matchmaking efforts to set up meetings for you with the various types of stakeholders who will be most beneficial to your company in terms of establishing or developing your business in that target market. We are just looking through additional questions coming through. And indeed, various questions in terms of being able to send through information on companies' products and technologies for our review on the best fit. We are certainly more than happy to do that and to advise you as to which trade fairs would be convenient or most suitable. So please don't hesitate to send us mails. And I would say that more generally, for any companies with an interest in the program, which really does offer a unique opportunity because you are provided with free access to these major international trade fairs in growing markets where tens, if not hundreds of thousands of visitors are coming to identify new and interesting technologies for their markets. You should definitely get in touch with us by email at the Overseas Trade Fairs mailbox, and we will be more than happy to support you in any way with your application, if relevant to the program. And all the way through the process that Laura highlighted in terms of the journey on the program, we aim to provide the maximum support possible so that you can benefit from this commercialization support. Another question coming through on financial support, and I'll take this as perhaps the last question just so that we can wrap up our webinar, is around the reimbursement limit. So essentially, as Laura highlighted earlier in the presentation, the maximum envelope of reimbursement for a given trade fair is set at €1,000 for each of the 15 companies. That €1,000 maximum envelope covers any eligible expenses, ranging from travel and accommodation reimbursement through to the reimbursement of what we call customized services, which will typically be for things such as translation and interpretation. If you go to China, for instance, you would need to translate your flyers. You would potentially need interpretation support to be able to talk to relevant local counterparts who can't speak English or your local language. You would need perhaps support in terms of printing posters for your booth. All of these types of services are partially reimbursed, and so the principle is that participants receive a maximum envelope of €1,000, provided that they have expenses of at least €2,000, i.e. 50% with this maximum of €1,000. So the program is financially obviously very attractive for you as European SMEs, and unique opportunity, as said, to visit these growing markets outside of the European Union. So thank you for all your questions. I hope to have covered a maximum of these. As said, we are always remaining available with the team for any further questions on an individual basis. Please don't hesitate to send us an email with those, and we will readily get back to you as quickly as possible. We thank you for your attention and look forward to your applications for our future trade fairs covered by the program, and I wish you a good day. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.